Hi guys, I'm here today to talk about some of the suggested videos, and today's video is going to be about servitors. Now I wrote down a bunch of information so I wouldn't forget anything. I work with servitors. It's not something I talk about a whole lot because it's a very private thing. It's like my relationship with Hecate. But I think everybody should know how to create, work with, and feed a servitor. And then we're going to talk about natural servitors, lodestones. So a servitor is an entity that you basically create to work with you for a specific magical task or cause. Explaining how to make them is a little difficult. Explaining how to use them is not so bad, and house them and so on. You know, they keep you on track for certain things, certain tasks, or certain goals you have magically. Even mundanely, I've heard of people using them for alarm reminders and all kinds of different things. So they're just basically an entity you create to work with you or for you. I suggest using them in a fairly short term, 1 to 3 months. The shorter you use them, the stronger they are, unless you're really, really working with them daily on your own and feeding them. We'll talk about feeding them. Sometimes your intention in creating them is strong enough that they will literally badger you into taking care of that task. It depends on your intention upon creation. It depends on the ritual you create when you're creating them, or that you work with when you're creating them. How much of your deity do you put into this creation? How much of your ancestors do you pull into this creation? To create a servitor, you basically set up a ritual. You want a nice ritual setting. You want to call your corners. You want to call your elements. You want to call your deity and your ancestors and any other thing that you work with. If you work with more than one deity, call them all. Have as much power and energy with you as possible in this ritual. To create the servitor, you need nothing physical. I personally work with a poppet. I find it easier to have something physical. So you can work with a cloth poppet. A stick poppet in a jar works really well for a servitor because you can feed it. You can feed it herbs and so on, not just energy. So that works well. So you can have even a poppet made out of Play-Doh, made out of candle wax. Any type of form that you can give it will bring it more to life. You also want to create traits in it. Gosh, this is really hard to explain, you know, in a understandable fashion. But so to give it traits, let's say you're going to use it to increase your study, your magical study. You're going to want to create intelligence in it. You're going to want to give it intelligence. You're going to give it drive to educate itself and to succeed. You're going to want to give it dedication. A constant feed of energy that will help you learn or help you study and remind you to study. You want to give it the energy to really, really influence you. And these are the traits, you know, I mean, there's millions of traits you can give it, but you want to give it traits. You want to make it as real as possible. So it's got a form, it's got a trait or traits, multiple, and then you want to give it a home. If you're making a cloth, candle, Play-Doh, poppet, you want to give it a little box or a nice setting. Lace some velvet in it so it's comfortable. Surround it in crystals to feed the energies. A Selenite is a great crystal to put with your poppet, regardless of whether you make a physical poppet or a jar poppet. You should have a piece of selenite in there. It constantly creates energy, and feeding a servitor is quite important. So so you want to give it traits. You want to give it its energy and form, creation of some sort, poppet or jar or something to that effect. And you want to make it comfortable, and you want to create a relationship with it. You want to connect it to yourself. You can use a tag lock to connect it to yourself, a little bit of hair or fingernail clipping, something to that effect to connect it to you. And then you want to feed it. So let me see where I'm at. I don't want to forget anything. You feed it energy. We've talked about energy from the universe, so you're not using all of your own energy. To do this, you open your crown chakra, you visualize the light from the universe coming into your body and filling you till it's just pouring out your eyeballs, your ears, your fingertips, your toes, your elbows. Every joint in your body is just flowing with this golden light. Once you've done that, keep your crown chakra open, keep that energy coming in so you're not using your own, and charge and enchant your servitor. Give it as much energy as you've got the will to give. You want it to be as absolutely full of energy as possible. When you're opening your crown chakra and you're calling in this energy, at the same time, you want to call the energy of your deities. You want to call the energy of your ancestors. Anything and anyone you work with, you want their energy to go into this servitor. You want to give it as much life as possible. This is what's going to give it life. Last but not least, make sure I haven't forgotten anything. You want to name it. It needs a name. Now, it doesn't need a full, horribly long first, middle, and last name, but it needs a name. It needs to be a creation, an entity, a full entity. A full entity has a form. It has traits. It has a beautiful home, a comfortable place to be, and it has a name. So you're going to want to name it. I have a servitor that I feed all the time, and I keep going, and that is my book of spells. His name is Augustus. I work with him very often, and I feed him all the time. And how I feed him is giving him spells. I put my spells into him, and I give him energy the entire time I'm writing. He works with me because he helps me stay aware that I have a spell for that. He helps me stay aware that I need to continually add to it, and I need to study, and I need to use those spells. Writing spells does you no good if you're not going to put them to use. And to constantly create magics. He's there to remind me of that. So, and he's something that I said, short term, 1 to 3 months, a couple of weeks is even better, but to be honest, you can have a long-term servitor if you actually keep a relationship with it. And we're going to talk about relationships with your servitor next. Once you name it, you need to work with it often, not just when you need it. So, and that's important. You don't want to be called upon just when you're needed by a friend. You want to have a relationship with that friend outside of just your needed abilities. You don't want to get a phone call every time you need to borrow $20. They need to borrow $20. You want to have a relationship with this person. And your servitor is no different. It wants to have a relationship. It doesn't want to just be called on when it's needed. And so it's important. It sounds a little crazy, but it's important to talk to it, to tell it how you're doing in this venture that you've got it working with you for. To show your gratitude, give it thanks, feed it. You can have a poppet that's a servitor and keep a pocket in it. If it's a cloth poppet, you can keep a pocket in it that's open, hemmed, so it's nice, and feed it herbs as often as you you think about it. Share with it your experiences that you're getting from this task that you've set it up to help you with. Talk to it, give it a life. It's got to be real. If it's not real to you, it's not real. And if it's not real, it's not helping you. It's doing you no good. So you need to have a relationship with it. You need to give it the respect it deserves and the communication it deserves, and not call upon it just when it's needed. Next, when you're finished with this task, don't keep it hanging on. When you're finished with this task, release it. Allow it to go back into the universe. Allow it to dissolve into the space in which it came from, the energy in which created it. And the reason you need to do that is because it's going to linger until you do release it. And the more unhappy it becomes, the more dangerous it becomes. And I know that that sounds a little scary to use the word dangerous, but it is an entity. It is something that you've created. If you ignore it, if you treat it with disrespect, if you leave it lingering and have never released it, you've got it, months and years, and you don't work with it those months and years, and you don't feed it those months and years, it's going to become unhappy like any other spirit or any other entity. And when I say dangerous, I don't mean it's going to come in and kill you. I'm not saying that type of dangerous, but you have released an entity into your home or your magic room or your box that you've set it in. And it can contaminate that box. The energy of unhappiness can contaminate that box. And this is how items get created that are unhealthy and I don't know the word I'm looking for, but I know you understand what I'm saying. When you get an item that is just full of negative energy, these are the types of things that can actually create that. So we don't want to do that. We want to release it when we're done. We don't want to leave it hanging on and not feed it and not work with it and not communicate with it. It's going to become an unhappy entity. So be sure that when you are finished working with this entity, that you release it back into the energy of which it was created. That is like the most I can tell you about servitors. I hope it was, educational enough to help you begin working with them and not frighten you away from it, because they can be a powerful, powerful entity in your corner. But again, you need to take those certain precautions. You need to create a form. You need to give it a home. You need to give it traits. You need to give it a name. You need to communicate with it often. You need to have a relationship, a repertoire with it. You need to fill it in on how you're doing. And you need to keep it happy. And it's not a terrible thing if you don't, but it is going to contaminate its area, its field, your room, your box, your jar. It's going to contaminate if it's unhappy. And that is the main thing to keep in mind. An entity is an entity. You've created something out of nothing that is pure energy that you can draw from, but you can also rot it. Literally, it can rot. And energy that is rotten is no good for anybody. It just becomes negative, static, stagnant energy, and we don't want that. So I think I've filled you in enough on servitors. I hope I have. If you have any questions, put them up. I'm quite willing to answer any questions. If I don't know the answer, you know me, you guys, I'll find it. Next but not least, I want to talk about lodestones. This is my lodestone home. It's just a nice little box my lodestones live in. They have a task and they work with me. These are my lodestones. There are two of them, a male and a female, and I'm dumping their food all over the place. I wanted to talk to you about herbs that are good to work with servitors. So I'm going to get to that too, because that's important. You need to know what herbs to use. So lodestones are basically naturally magnetic stones. They have beautiful power to be natural servitors. When you have a lodestone or two, preferably you have a male and a female. I'm sorry, I'm bumping my camera left and right. Preferably you have a male and a female. When they work for you, when they complete a task for you, when they bring to you what you want, you feed them. You feed them with with iron chips or metal dust, so to speak. Mine need a feeding. They have helped me. Like 3 different things have come to pass that I needed, and I haven't fed them in a while, and that's very bad. You don't want to contaminate your lodestones. So you just give them a little bit of food. It doesn't take a lot. You can see I didn't dump a whole lot out. You just give them a little bit of food on a regular basis when something happens towards that goal. You can give them a task. You need to do the same thing with a servitor. You don't have to create them. They are. Name them. Give them a nice little comfortable home. I don't put cloth in a lodestone home. And the main reason is because you're going to be feeding them these iron dust, this metal dust. And it will get into velvet and it'll never come out. So they're okay just sitting, they're a stone. They're okay just sitting in a wooden box or a jar or whatever creation you use as a home. But you want to make it decorative. You know, if it's a jar, design something on the outside with a candle. With a pen. Make it a beautiful home. Find a perfect jar. Find a perfect box. Find something that is going to really, really, really make them comfortable. Remember, again, you need to talk to them. You need to bond with them. Let them know what happened that was toward your goal. I don't want to give away my goal because, again, that's a personal, magical thing. But every time something comes true towards that goal, I go to them and I say, thank you. Thank you. You worked so hard and this happened. And I am so happy and pleased with your work. Please continue to work with me. I am so grateful. And I talk to them because they are an entity. They are a natural servitor. They are a natural energy. And we need to work with them respectfully. They need to have a home. I name them. They need to be taken care of on a daily basis, or at least an every time you get a goal basis. I don't feed them daily. I feed them when the goal comes true. Same thing with a servitor. You feed it when the goal works. For instance, we were talking about using it to remind you to study magically. So let's say Monday you didn't study. You don't necessarily feed it. But Tuesday you spent the entire day studying. You're going to feed it. You're going to feed it your energy. You're going to feed it that energy field. You're going to open the crown chakra. You're going to charge it again. And then you're going to feed it herbs. If it's a jar poppet, it's easy to do. If it's a cloth poppet, it's easy to do. We talked about leaving a little opening in it. You can dump herbs all over a candle poppet. You can dump them all over a Play-Doh poppet. Whatever it is you've created, you want to feed it. Feed it your energy and feed it herbs. The herbs to feed it, juniper berries are terrific. I crush them. I don't just use whole juniper berries. When you crush them, you allow their essence to come out. I crush them. Mugwort is another one. Wormwood is another one. Coltsfoot is another one. You want to use those herbs to feed it. Those are herbs that work very well with spirit. Call in your deity once in a while. Call in your ancestors once in a while. Give it some of that energy. That's feeding it. But work with it very often. Again, keep it going. Same with lodestones. Work with them often. Talk to them often. Tell them how great they're doing and what they did for you. What happened recently that was so tremendous towards that goal. I think I've covered just about everything I can. Please work with your lodestones. If you don't have lodestones, I really highly suggest you get them. They're not super expensive. They are on Amazon. But you can often find a rock shop or something that sells them very cheap. I got my lodestones for $1 a piece at a rock shop in Shoshone, Idaho. Keep an eye out for them. Draw them to you. Do a spell to draw them to you. They'll come. Every witch on the planet should have lodestones. They are just a witch stone. They are what is meant for witches. Witches are meant for lodestones. They are a beautiful familiar. And that's literally what they are, is a familiar. When you create a servitor, you're creating a familiar. I hope I've explained enough. If I haven't, please ask any questions you have. I know how hard and complicated it was to explain all this, so I'm sure there are going to be questions. Please ask them. I would love to be sure you understand 100% what you need to do and how you need to do it. And so if you don't understand something, please ask the question. I want you to be able to work with servitors. Another thing people do is out of the name, they create a sigil and they draw it on the servitor itself, or they draw it on the jar that the poppet is kept in. And that's another really good way to feed it energy. Sigils are extremely powerful. So, or symbols. If they last more than 1 or 2 times, they're considered symbols. But you create them the same way you do a sigil. And so I hope this has helped. I love you guys tremendously. Thank you for the suggestions. Thank you for watching. I appreciate your views. I appreciate your subscribership. I appreciate your dedication to me. I really, really do. It means the world to me that you join me and that you feel like I have something to offer. That means a lot to me. Please remember, you're divine, sacred beings of light and love. I love each and every one of you with all of my heart. I really, truly do. It doesn't matter if I know you. I love humanity, and therefore I love you, and I want you to understand that. I love you. And please take care. Please be safe. And I will talk to you again soon, even today. Be in the same clothes. Bye, guys.